You look great, but welcome back to the show. Thanks for playing that game with me, man. You're good. Fun. You're fun to play games. We got to talk about your new film, How to Train Your Dragon, but you've already had a great year. You've already had a #1 movie. It was a sequel to Den of Thieves.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
In 2025, Gerard Butler finally broke his silence about 300. His words were chilling. Every day, somebody was getting taken to the hospital. The movie made $450 million, but behind the scenes was pure chaos. Actors were getting speared in the eye. Bones were breaking during simple scenes. Butler himself barely survived the filming. For 18 years, he kept quiet about what really happened. Now he's telling the truth about the most dangerous movie set in Hollywood history. Gerard Butler was born on November 13, 1969, in Paisley, Scotland. When he was just 6 months old, his parents moved the family to Montreal, Canada. But the move didn't last long. After only 18 months, his parents split up. His mother, Margaret, took Gerard and his siblings back to Scotland. What's hard to imagine is that for the next 14 years, Gerard had no idea whether his father was alive or dead. That silence ended one day when Gerard was 16. He came home from school, and his stepfather simply told him to keep his jacket on. His father was there. Gerard, who rarely cried, broke down for 5 hours. That moment opened the door to summers in Toronto, and even a trip to Jamaica with his dad, who had once been a mystery. In school, Gerard stood out. He wasn't just smart, he was also well-liked and driven. At St. Mirren's and St. Margaret's High School, he became head boy, the top student role in the school. After that, he went to the University of Glasgow to study law. It was one of the best law schools in the country. While there, he didn't just focus on his studies, he also became president of the Law Society, even though he later admitted he had sort of talked his way into that position. But people liked him. He was confident, charming, and full of energy. Everyone assumed he'd become a successful lawyer, but Gerard was hiding something big. While his classmates were deep in textbooks, Gerard was on stage at night, singing in a rock band called Speed. He had no formal training, but he sang with heart. He covered songs by The Doors, Eric Clapton, and Jimi Hendrix. During the day, he worked through legal theory. At night, he performed in crowded clubs, chasing a thrill that books couldn't give him. He didn't know it yet, but these late nights were the first signs that his true calling wasn't in law. It was in performance, in energy, and in raw emotion. Then came the moment that changed everything. He was 27, working as a trainee lawyer at a firm in Edinburgh. Just 1 week before qualifying, he went to the Edinburgh Festival and drank too much. The law firm fired him on the spot. Just 7 days short of finishing what he had worked years to build, it was all gone. But that painful moment may have saved his life. Gerard later said that if he had stayed in law, he didn't think he would have survived. His drinking had become dangerous. He drank until he couldn't remember what he'd done. He admitted he was on a path of self-destruction. After the firing, he gave up alcohol completely and moved to London. Once in London, reality hit hard. He had to take whatever job he could find. He waited tables and dealt with rude customers. He worked in telemarketing, calling strangers and begging them to buy things they didn't want. But the strangest job of all was selling toys on the street. He stood at market stalls showing kids how to use toys, hoping their parents would buy. He was barely surviving. He went from nearly becoming a lawyer to juggling odd jobs, scraping together enough to eat and sleep. It was exhausting and depressing, but he kept going. Every job felt like a dead end. But it was also making him tougher. Then something unexpected happened. He ran into someone he knew from the Scottish Youth Theatre. She was now a casting director. Not only did they reconnect, they started dating. She gave him a job as her assistant. That meant he was sitting in auditions, helping actors get roles, while still trying to become one himself. It was a strange feeling. He was so close to the thing he wanted, but not close enough. He watched people audition every day. Some were great, some were awful. He saw the whole process from the inside, and every time he handed out a script or scheduled a meeting, he was thinking, that could be me. Eventually, it was him. One day, she took him to an audition for a Shakespeare play called Coriolanus, directed by Steven Berkoff. Some say she arranged it. Others say Butler begged Berkoff in a coffee shop just for a chance to read. Either way, he gave it everything. Berkoff said he had more energy than anyone else and cast him on the spot. In one version, Butler ended up in the ensemble. In the other, he won the lead role. But both versions agree on one thing. This was the moment that changed his life. He went from handing out scripts to starring in the production. He was 27. It was his first real acting job. And when he walked home after getting the part, he said it felt like the happiest moment of his life, like something inside him finally clicked. In 1997, he landed a small role in the film Mrs. Brown. It was meant to be a quiet BBC television project, but then Miramax bought it and released it internationally. It ended up earning $13.2 million and launched Judi Dench to awards season glory. Butler played a minor part, but the film took him to the Cannes Film Festival. It was the first time he saw the global spotlight. That same year, Butler got a tiny role in Tomorrow Never Dies. He was on screen for barely a second, playing a crewman with no lines. But that second mattered. The Bond film became a $339 million hit and was the fourth biggest movie of 1997. It opened the same day as Titanic, so it lost the top box office spot. Still, being on that set gave Butler a first-hand look at how big-budget films were made. He was soaking up everything he could, even if no one knew his name yet. His first real starring role came in Dracula 2000. It looked like a big break. The budget was $54 million and expectations were high, but the movie flopped. It only made $47 million and didn't recover what it spent. Butler, though, left a mark. Even under vampire makeup, his Scottish accent slipped through. Instead of hurting the role, it made his Dracula feel different, more raw, more real. He had bulked up for the part and showed he could physically transform himself, something that would become his signature in later action roles. Not long after, he starred in the miniseries Attila. It ran nearly 3 hours and gave Butler the chance to show more than just horror or muscle. He played a legendary warrior in battle scenes and intense drama. The project showed Hollywood he could handle bigger roles. Everything changed when he turned 30. That was when he moved to Los Angeles. He was born on November 13th, 1969, so it was late 1999 when he took the leap. He had nothing lined up, no savings, and no fallback. In London, he had been waiting tables, working call centers, and even demonstrating toys at fairs. He later admitted that at first he just wanted to be famous, but he arrived at exactly the right time. Hollywood was looking for strong, dramatic actors who didn't look like typical movie stars. Butler fit the moment. Within a year of moving, he landed 4 major roles. He was in Dracula 2000, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life, Dear Frankie, and The Phantom of the Opera. It was a fast rise for someone who had only been in theater a few years earlier. Even though Dracula 2000 had failed at the box office, it showed studios that Butler could lead a movie, and that's all they needed to see. While filming Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life in 2003, Gerard Butler found himself in a moment that could have ended in disaster. He was hanging upside down, rehearsing an action scene when he had to fire a prop gun. The problem was, he had no control over where the gun was pointing. He fired blindly. One of the bullets narrowly missed Angelina Jolie's face. Years later, he admitted the whole thing could have gone horribly wrong. He called it insane. Even with all the safety rules on set, things can still go off track. That moment reminded many people of how dangerous these movie sets can be, especially after recent tragedies involving prop guns. A year later, Butler took a leap no one expected. He became the Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera. It wasn't supposed to be him. The studio first wanted Hugh Jackman, but Jackman was already working on Van Helsing, so the director, Joel Schumacher, looked elsewhere. He had seen Butler in Dracula 2000, and something clicked. Butler wasn't a trained singer. He had only performed with a rock band before, but he trained hard and surprised everyone when he sang The Music of the Night for the first time. Even Andrew Lloyd Webber was impressed. The movie earned over $154 million worldwide. It got 3 Oscar nominations, 3 Golden Globe nominations, and Butler was nominated for a Satellite Award. Critics didn't love it. Rotten Tomatoes gave it just 33%, but regular people disagreed. Over 250,000 fans rated it 84% on the popcorn meter. Webber later said the film was an extraordinarily fine version of the stage show. That same year, Butler showed another side of himself. He played a quiet, emotional role in Dear Frankie, a small Scottish drama. He played a stranger pretending to be a deaf boy's long-lost father. It was a slow, tender film, very different from his earlier roles. He didn't fight anyone. He didn't scream or shout. He simply connected with a young boy over books about the sea and stories about soccer. Emily Mortimer played the mother. The film wasn't flashy, but it stuck with people. In the end, Butler's character gives back the money he was paid, showing he really cared. He won the Capri Breakout Actor Award and proved he could do more than action or horror. The film got a 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb, based on over 23,000 votes. Butler's rise didn't come out of nowhere. Back in 2000, he took two key roles that set him on the right path. One was Attila, a miniseries where he played Attila the Hun. Producers first wanted someone more famous, but they kept coming back to Butler. The other was Dracula 2000, where he pushed hard to get the lead. He also had small but important appearances earlier, like in Tomorrow Never Dies in 1997. And while filming Mrs. Brown, he saved a young boy from drowning. For that, he was given a certificate of bravery from the Royal Humane Society. Slowly, he was building a name. By 2005, fans were talking about him online, sharing his clips and interviews. Then came the turning point. ChatGPT said, Gerard Butler didn't just play King Leonidas. He became him. But what most people don't realize is how strange, exhausting, and groundbreaking the journey really was. The entire movie 300 was filmed in just 60 days inside Montreal's Ice Storm Studios, which doesn't even exist anymore. Not on real mountains or battlefields, just blue screens. Almost every scene was fake. Only one single shot, with horses crossing a field, was done outside. Everything else, walls, skies, blood, armies, was added later. The team used blue instead of green because it worked better with the Spartans' red capes. It might sound like a small thing, but it changed everything. Out of the film's 1,523 shots, more than 1,300 used visual effects. That added up to 8,631 separate VFX pieces, made by 10 different companies over a full year. The movie was shot in order, which is rare, but even that didn't help much when the actors had nothing around them but emptiness. Gerard Butler later said he felt completely disconnected because there was nothing to look at, nothing to react to, just another actor in front of him and a sea of blue behind. That mental disconnection was one of the reasons they brought in Tim Connolly. He wasn't just a stunt double. He trained Butler, did his dangerous scenes, and also played Leonidas's father in the flashback. It wasn't planned as a big statement, but it ended up becoming something symbolic. Connolly shaped the Spartan warrior behind the scenes, then stepped in front of the camera as the one who created him in the story. It became this strange mix of real life and fiction. Butler actually got hurt during filming. He tore a tendon in his arm and developed foot drop, which made Connolly's help even more important. It's rare in Hollywood for a father character to be both a protector and trainer in real life. There's another detail in the movie that people miss: the plume on Leonidas's helmet. Real Spartans all wore plumes, but Zack Snyder made a bold decision. He gave the black plume only to Leonidas. In scenes with hundreds of soldiers clashing, it made it easy to spot the king. Your eyes were always drawn to him. That plume became a kind of silent narrator. It guided you through the chaos. It also helped during editing because the battles weren't real. Most of the army was digital, but the plume gave the team something solid to track, something that connected each shot. Today, replica helmets with the black plume still sell online. It's more than a prop now. It's a piece of cinematic history. The workout that transformed Gerard Butler into King Leonidas didn't come from a typical Hollywood trainer. It was created by Mark Twight, a mountain climber who treated the cast like they were preparing for a life-or-death mission. The training lasted 4 full months. It wasn't a quick prep, and out of everyone involved, only 17 people completed the final test. That was just half the team. Twight didn't just push them hard. He watched every rep, every move. If it wasn't perfect, it didn't count. Some actors were so rattled by the pressure, they actually performed worse. It was a mental war, not just a workout. His goal was to build trust between the cast and make sure it showed on camera. The final test was called the 300 workout, and it was brutal. 25 pull-ups to start, then 50 deadlifts with 135 pounds, then 50 push-ups, 50 box jumps onto a 2-foot platform, 50 floor wipers, 50 clean and presses with a 36-pound kettlebell, and another 25 pull-ups to finish. No real rest in between. It took some people just 15 minutes, others up to 45, but every round had to be finished in one go. That's where the name came from. 300 reps total. What most people don't know is that this wasn't a daily routine. It was a one-time challenge to prove who was ready, and it worked. That deadlift weight may sound easy, but after you've done over 200 reps, it becomes something else entirely. A wall that not everyone could push through. And here's the wild part. Most of the time, they never repeated a single workout. Twight changed everything every day. The routines were random on purpose. The actors never got to settle in. One day, they were flipping tires. The next, they were lifting until failure with 50-pound kettlebells. No No pattern, no comfort zone. The idea was to keep the body shocked and in survival mode. That's how they changed fast. The mental strain was part of it. When you don't know what's coming, you can't prepare. That unpredictability made it one of the most extreme fitness programs ever used in Hollywood, and it influenced modern training styles for years. Gerard Butler said it was the hardest thing he's ever done. After some workouts, he actually felt sick. He said it wasn't just hard, it was brutal, and the mental side was just as bad as the physical, but it changed something in him. He once said every drop of sweat, every rep, stayed in his eyes long after. When he finally put on the Spartan gear, he felt like a lion, not an actor pretending. He believed it. That transformation was real. Some actors started 40 pounds overweight and came out looking like warriors. They kept track of scores every day. It became a competition. Even director Zack Snyder joined in. He trained every morning at 8:30 before anyone else showed up, just to test himself against the same pain. Then in January 2025, Butler said something that shocked everyone. While promoting Den of Thieves 2, he told People magazine, "I remember every day somebody was getting taken to the hospital. It wasn't a joke. He meant it." The film made over $450 million from a $65 million budget, but behind the success was a lot of pain. In that same interview, he talked to co-star O'Shea Jackson Jr. about how the set often felt like a war zone. The polished final product didn't show it, but the cast paid a heavy price. Butler remembered the injuries like a list from a war report. One actor took a spear to the eye. Another broke his ankle during a fight scene. And those weren't flukes. They happened often. He called it insane. The swords and spears were dulled, but they were still metal. When actors missed their marks or moved half a second too late, someone got hurt. The eye injury happened during a basic scene. That tells you how dangerous it really was. Butler said there were times he'd just turn around and someone was already down. The chaos became normal. They got used to it. And Butler himself wasn't spared for long. He made it through 300, but while filming his next movie, Butterfly on a Wheel, things went bad. There was a car chase scene with Pierce Brosnan. Brosnan was supposed to brake hard on a rooftop, but he didn't. Instead, he slammed Butler into a 3-foot wall with a Range Rover. Butler said it wrecked his neck, and that was right after the punishment of 300. His body was already falling apart. He'd pulled a tendon in his arm. His hip flexor was injured. He even had nerve damage in one leg. The crash just made everything worse. Those injuries still affect him to this day, and it's a clear example of what actors go through when they jump from one action role to another without any recovery time. What's even more surprising is the blood. Not the real kind, the fake stuff. You'd think 300 used buckets of fake blood, but the production only used about 2 gallons. That's it. Almost all of the gore was digital. The blood splashes, the sprays, the wounds, they were all added later on computers. So while actors were getting genuinely hurt on set, there was barely any fake blood being used during filming. It's kind of ironic. The injuries were real, but the gore was fake. Gerard Butler didn't want to be just another action hero. After 300 exploded at the box office in 2007 with over $456 million, he could have played tough guys for the rest of his life. But instead, he made a surprising move. Just a few months later, he starred in P.S. I Love You, a romantic drama that made $156 million worldwide on a $30 million budget. People in Hollywood were stunned. Most thought he would stick to bloody battles and slow-motion fights, but he wanted to prove he could do more than swing a sword. So he kept switching things up. He had already done musicals like The Phantom of the Opera. Then came raunchy comedies like The Ugly Truth, which brought in more than $200 million. Still, the industry kept pulling him back into action. He returned with the Has Fallen series, which alone earned more than $500 million. Critics said he never really escaped the action hero label, but Butler had made his point. He could lead almost any genre and keep people watching, but not everything went smoothly. On the set of P.S. I Love You, a comedy moment turned dangerous. Butler had to dance around in suspenders and boxers while crawling toward Hilary Swank. It was supposed to be silly. For a day and a half, he kept filming the scene. But then, one of the metal clips snapped off with force. It flew straight into Swank's forehead and cut her badly. The injury was deep enough to show the clip's teeth. She had to be rushed to the hospital. The set was cleared in seconds. Butler, still in his underwear, was left crying alone, terrified he had hurt his co-star. Production stopped while Swank recovered, adding delays to the $30 million film. Despite moments like that, Butler's career took off. His movies have made $3.25 billion worldwide. That puts him ahead of stars like Tom Hardy, Hardy, Jamie Foxx, and Tobey Maguire. In the U.S. alone, his box office earnings total $1.9 billion. Add the international numbers, and it climbs to $2.9 billion. His appeal clearly reaches far beyond America. He didn't stop at acting. Butler became a producer, too. He helped make Law-Abiding Citizen and several has-fallen films. That gave him more control and more money. His instincts paid off. Den of Thieves earned enough to launch a franchise. The second film made over $50 million on a $40 million budget. His projects may not always please critics, but they consistently make money. One of his most unexpected wins came through animation. In 2010, Butler voiced Stoic the Vast in How to Train Your Dragon. The film earned $494.8 million and gave him a new fan base, kids and families. He stayed with the role through all three films. Then, in 2025, he joined the live-action version, even though the studio initially wanted someone more famous. The director refused to replace him. That choice paid off. The remake made $519.1 million, making it his highest-grossing film ever. As Stoic, Butler showed he could be both fierce and gentle, especially in scenes with his on-screen son, played by Mason Thames. But his off-screen life has been just as intense. In his 20s, while living in Venice Beach with a group of heavy drinkers, Butler lost control. He drank until he blacked out. He says it felt like he was on a death wish, but he quit alcohol over 20 years ago, even though most people think he stopped in 2011. That's not true. What happened in 2012 was different. That year, he checked into the Betty Ford Clinic, not for drinking, but for painkillers. The addiction started during 300 after a tough injury. It got worse after a surfing accident in December 2011. While filming Chasing Mavericks, Butler was hit by giant waves at a legendary surf spot in Northern California. He was dragged underwater, slammed into rocks, and barely survived. He was pulled out by jet skis and rushed to Stanford Medical Center. The pain was so intense that he turned to strong prescription pills. When it started to get out of hand, he checked himself into rehab. He stayed for 3 weeks and later said he had no regrets. That surfing accident could have ended his life. But another near-death moment came in 2017, and it was even stranger. After a long stunt shoot for Geostorm, Butler tried bee venom therapy for muscle pain. It was supposed to be safe, but he was given the venom equal to 23 bee stings, 10 times more than normal. His throat closed, his heart raced. He swelled up and went into shock. He had to be hospitalized. 4 days later, he tried again with a lower dose and had the same reaction. He was back in the hospital again. Even Jeff Goldblum told him, "That is crazy." Then came the fire. In November 2018, the Woolsey fire swept through Los Angeles County. Butler had to evacuate. When he came back on November 11th, his Malibu home was gone. Everything was burned. Only metal pieces and ashes remained. He posted a photo of himself standing in the ruins. Smoke was still rising behind him. He simply said, "Welcome to my home in Malibu." Wow. The fire destroyed over 1,600 buildings and burned almost 97,000 acres. A year later, his house still hadn't been rebuilt. Through it all, Butler never stopped helping others. In 2010, he presented an award to the founder of Mary's Meals. Since then, he's been one of the charity's strongest supporters. He doesn't just donate money. He's gone to Liberia and Haiti, helped cook meals, and taught classes. Today, the charity feeds 2 million children every school day across 19 countries. In 2020, he received the Cinema for Peace Honorary Award in Berlin, joining names like Leonardo DiCaprio and George Clooney. But his love life has been more complicated. Since 2014, he's been in an on-and-off relationship with interior designer Morgan Brown. They've broken up twice, once in 2016 and again in 2020. In 2022, they got back together. Butler once said he wanted to settle down by age 50 and start a family. Now at 55, he still hasn't proposed. Morgan, now 54, is reportedly tired of waiting.